This is For Advisors by Advisors. I'm your host, Evan J. Mayer, and today we have a very special guest in Thomas Koppelman.
Hey, man.
What's going on, Tom? How are you?
I am doing really well. Still getting back into the swing of things after a little bit of a break, but things are going well.
You took the last 2 weeks off or something of the.
I worked last week, but I got COVID in December and then was also off for like a week from right before Christmas till the first. My fiance was very big in pushing me to take the time off because I love to work and I could work all the time. And so I did it and just takes a couple days to get back into it, especially on a Monday when it's 15 degrees and snowy.
Yeah. Where are you?
I live in Indianapolis.
Okay. Well, tough loss yesterday by the Colts, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'm a Bears fan and also a tough loss. The season was over, but we wanted a little bit more momentum going into the season, going into next year, and didn't give it to happen.
Well, you got the number one pick, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
Tom is a financial planner and co-founder of All Street Wealth, as well as head of community at wealth.com. And also, he has his own podcast. He's a content creator, a blogger. He's the millennial thing of doing everything, right?
Yeah, I definitely do a lot of things. I basically started at a broker dealer and had managers that were a lot older and their whole big thing was call everybody, go to networking events, go to volunteer opportunities, find clients that way. And I hated it. Like I was so about like, is this the right industry? Is this what I want to do? Like I shouldn't be pushing people to need to work with me. Like everybody preaches that financial planning is so important and everybody needs your help. But somehow for some reason I'm selling to everybody. And so I basically was like, every industry grows through social media or the internet, right?
Yep.
And we're like one of the highest trust industries. We have an industry where it's all about teaching people about things that they don't really know.
Yep.
And so my thought was, why am I not doing this through social media like every other industry? And for the longest time, everybody was like, oh, I don't know an advisor who gets clients from social media, or that's not how I did it. That's not the way that you should do it either. And I was like, I think you're wrong. And that was a really big revelation for me. And kind of when everything switched is when I doubled down on education is the way to get clients. And it's proven to be true.
Yeah, I've been hearing that a lot, specifically from the millennial advisors, that this is the way. And the truth of the matter is that, first of all, it couldn't have been the way 10, 15 years ago just because regulations wouldn't allow it. And today, even, it's a little easier if you're a straight RIA like you are to be able to kind of do that content, where if you're through a brokerage firm, it's very tough. So, Tom, you've been in the business for 4 years, started in 2000. Looks like you started All Street in 2021 with just a couple $1 million. I've been watching some of your podcasts, or listening to some of your podcasts, also watching some of your content online. And it looks like you're growing substantially. And a lot of how your growth is coming is from X, that platform, and LinkedIn. I think there was a post you had a few days ago that reoccurring revenue you found from X was maybe 200,000 a year. You expect that by the end of this year to grow that by 500,000. That's amazing numbers. What are you doing and how are you so successful with it?
Yeah. So I think for me, there's like two parts of how I do it on social media, or maybe even three. So one of them is that like, I think the average person is not active enough in the way that they post. And most people are like, I don't have the time, but I actually think that they don't know how to prioritize it because we look at my statistics and I spend under 5 hours a week on social media. I just schedule a ton of things out and have gotten really good at that. And that comes from new content ideas and then also repurposing content. Like I think a lot of people put out one post and it works really well and they never think about rewording it or reposting it or doing different things with it. And then the third one is like, I just had this thesis where everybody says quality over quantity, but my thought is, what if I can combine the two and still have good quality, but have more quantity than anybody else? Because at the end of the day, right, like if the average person posts 3 times a week, maybe two is educational, maybe one is something else, then that means you have like 8 educational posts a month. And if the average person sees 25% of your posts, that means they see one post from you every single month. And maybe of those posts, half of them had nothing to do with their life. It didn't relate to what they were going through. It wasn't something that added value to them. So that means you touched base with them 6 times a year. Well, what if I can do that a week? What if I have 6 valuable educational posts a week, which I do like 50 or something like that? So
Yeah.
if it ends up being like 6, who are they probably going to reach out to when they hit a new complexity in their financial life? And my thought was, it's probably going to be me. if that's what they do. And I think a lot of advisors are like, well, how do I come up with enough content? How do I post about this? But like, we're in the, like, there's so much depth in financial planning, right? You can look at cash and debt and investments and retirement and college planning and estate planning and tax planning and business planning and equity comp planning. And you could come up with 20 different facts about it, right? And then you could come up with each fact, how to write it 3 different ways. And then you could write it in a longer post and you could just take in like 6 mistakes. And
Are
there's
you
just like,
using AI to help
nope.
formulate this, or this is all just freehand?
I think AI is terrible at writing. I think it's really good at editing what you've already written, but it's really terrible at writing and it takes away your voice. And like for me, what I think social media is branding and trying to show people who I am, how I think, and what I know. Right. And so AI takes away your voice. It takes away what makes you different. It just writes more in a computer way. So to me, it's not something I used it for. I've tried. I've typed in like write 3 tweets for the next 30 days about social or about personal finance for business owners in their 30s, and it's terrible. There's not one post out of it that I would even consider posting in the way that it's written.
And what's your favorite platform now that you like to use?
So it's definitely Twitter. Like Twitter is where all my clients come from. And in the beginning of this podcast, you're really talking about like, so it's good for millennials, right? But if you look up James Knoll, he is an advisor, mid 30s, late 30s. He works only with retirees. He uses YouTube and he's growing at over 100 million in AUM a year from YouTube alone with only retirees. And so I think people assume
Yeah, no,
that,
I didn't mean it's for millennials. I meant the millennial generation of advisors is now
oh yeah.
starting to use it. I'm on X all the time. I'm not a millennial, but that's what I meant by that.
Oh,
Yeah, it
for
was
sure, but it's a common thing advisors say to me all the time is they're like, "Well, I get why that works for your audience. You work with young people." But in all reality, most of the clients I work with are mid 30s to mid 50s. Like the top client that we've signed from Twitter alone, and I partner with a family office on this client as a business that they own 90% of that should sell for 200 to 250 million dollars next year. So I've sat down with prospects from 50 to 250 million net worth and double digit figures of those. I'm working on a prospect right now who owns a company that does 200 million ARR and he still owns 40%. And so the people think like, well, only low income younger people are going to use social media, when in reality, a lot of these people are like really successful. They're self learners. They use specifically Twitter as a platform to follow people in real estate and estate planning and all these other areas. And they learn from them. And then when they need the help, they're like, well, I can either ask a friend who's nowhere in my wealth range. I can randomly go to some platform, some random place and search advisors near me, or I can reach out to the person I've been following for 2 or 3 years whose knowledge is more than anybody I've ever talked to. They're going to go to that person, right? And so everybody thinks in our industry that seminars are really valuable, right? We all know if you can get people to show up and I can talk to you for 30 to 45 minutes about retirement planning or tax planning or something, they're going to be like, "Oh, wow, that guy knows a lot. I should probably work with him." I basically get to do that every single day, and I've done it every single day for over 4 years
And
in social media.
is it like learning the algorithms and kind of understanding the algorithms behind what touches those people? And how engaged are you in picking up the followers? Meaning, are they finding you and following you, or are you actively going out there and seeking them?
I don't seek any followers. I don't even DM anybody. So my process of how I get clients is they follow me for a really long time. I've never seen their name. They eventually go to my profile, they click the link there, they review my website, and then they apply to work with us. And then we vet them from the application. And then we refer out all the people who don't fit us, which is probably now about 10% of the prospects. And then the people who are a fit, my assistant books time with us. And last year I had 160 qualified prospects alone from social media. And
Wow.
so we talked about those numbers, right? Last year, in January, because Wall Street was 14 months old at that point, I did about 11,000 in revenue. In December, I did 54,000 of revenue. And that's all just 1 year's growth. And so I'd say 9 out of 10 prospects are from Twitter. The other one is either a referral from a client or the occasional person from LinkedIn.
Okay, so LinkedIn, it's very rare. You have a pretty decent presence there, something like 10,000 followers there.
Yeah, I think I have maybe like 11. But the thing for me is I spend under 5 minutes a day on LinkedIn. So all I do is take what works well from Twitter and I just post it and maybe edit it slightly to LinkedIn. And I just schedule that way. So like once every 3, 4 weeks, I go last month of Twitter, schedule out the next month of LinkedIn, and then call it a day.
And are you sharing a lot on Twitter as far as like other people's posts, or is everything your own content?
I pretty much only do my own content because I write a new blog every week. I have a new podcast every week. I have a new YouTube video every week. I have a ton of YouTube shorts every single week. Like, I really only need to share my own. Like, if one of my friends writes something good and is valuable, I'll like retweet it or like comment something on it. But in general, I really just use it as like an educational tool for people. Know if they follow me, they're going to learn about personal finance specifically for business owners and then people with equity compensation.
And YouTube, are you have you ventured that? I mean, you just said you do some clips
I
there.
just started.
Okay.
I'm 2 months in. I started in like November and really just as like a hedge, right? Like I was like, okay, what if Twitter fails in a couple years? And in all reality, if Twitter survives one more year, I'll be at more than capacity. And probably in 2 years, I would assume we'll do 1 million in revenue a year, which is pretty much where you want to be. And then you can grab more assets from clients as they continue to grow and have liquidity events. But I think I'll add more advisors and I'll pay advisors a salary and I'll give them clients that I'm bringing in. And so I do want to hedge and I have all this content, right? I've wrote a blog post every week for over 4 years. I mean, that's like 200 blog posts to turn into videos. I have all these threads. I write one thread, 1 to 2 threads every single week on Twitter. And so I just didn't do YouTube because I didn't have the time to do video editing. And now I have the funds to hire it out. So I recently started like November. And just now we used old videos for a while just to get used to the structure and how we want them to look.
Yep.
And now I've just started doing new ones and a bunch of shorts. And I'm probably at like 20 some thousand views, like 250 subscribers. So not a bad first couple months, but I'm not trying to promote it on other channels really. I'm taking those videos and like the clips I can and just posting them elsewhere. Because to me, YouTube's about finding a new audience, not pushing that audience to follow me on YouTube.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're basically using those videos, getting them out there, and then people are clicking on those links and going to YouTube and finding your channel and subscribing that way.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if like going back to my thesis on, we're not really doing marketing, we're doing personal branding, right? Because all it is, people want to work with the right person. Like nobody really, except for maybe super high net worth people are like, I want to work with Goldman. Nobody's like, I want to go work with this company down the street. They want to go work with that guy or that girl, right?
Yeah, the individual.
And so video is another way for like everybody. Like when people come to work with me, they know me really well. They listen to my podcast, they listen to my videos, they read my content, and I don't button anything up. I'm just exactly who I am. So my brand matches. And so I think posting those videos and those shorts does a really great job of now adding more video, letting people get to know me better, explaining things in word versus writing, which some people like, etc.
And the podcast, so that's about a year old now. You've been how about?
It's a little bit older. So the podcast, I've done 3 seasons. The first year, I used to work with an advisor, Justin Castelli, who's pretty well known, and he thought that in the first year I should do my podcast, not necessarily about finance, but more on like success stories of people who like really went out over their passions and stuff. And I did that. And then when I started my firm, I was like, I want to talk about finance. Like, I think this is such a good way for long form content. And so the last 2 years I've done that now. And so it's gone pretty good. I have like 45,000 downloads or something, but all of that really came in the last year. I get like 700 listens a week. Most episodes are like 600 to 1100 listens. And then just as of the last 2 weeks, I added a new co-host with me, Jacob Turner. He was the 8th pick in the MLB draft out of high school. He's another financial advisor that I'm good friends with. And so hopefully that'll help grow it a lot too, because he also has a good 30, 40,000 followers. So I'm excited about that too.
Now at the end of the day, is that podcast being put out to basically to your Twitter followers and everybody else to kind of be able to see you more than a 30-second clip, really to get to know how you think or how you feel maybe before reaching out to you? And are you seeing any direct referrals just coming from the podcast, or is it more just everything kind of related? Because from what I've learned over the last year is that it's not necessarily what you put out, it's just putting out a lot and getting it out there and finding out the way to get in those algorithms where people are finding you.
Yeah, no, I think you actually said it really well, because there are people, right, like Taylor Schulte or a couple other people have really big podcasts that people literally only find them through the podcast and then become clients through that. But that's also because that's their one area of activity that they focus on. It works so well, why they don't need to do anything else.
Yep.
For me, the podcast is about nurturing. It's just another way for people to listen to me talk and be like, man, I've never heard an advisor spend time talking about QBI or advisors to know this much about tax planning. Because in reality, most financial planners don't really do much tax planning. And if they do, it's Roth conversions, right? Or go all Roth or go traditional versus Roth. And that's like 101 of tax planning. And we're trying to be like 401 in tax planning. And so they get to hear that from me. The other thing is I get to learn a ton. I bring on some amazing people across the industry that I would not be able to sit down for an hour and ask them questions about. So I think it does that. There's some people who I've had on as guests that I'm sitting down with to become clients that like own large CPA firms or do other things. They're like, oh man, I didn't realize you were somebody that I could work with. But every client that I've ever gotten either cites Twitter or that they followed me everywhere for a really long time. And now they just got $1 million of RSUs granted to them at their new job and they need help.
Yeah. Are you, as far as your website is concerned, you do a lot of fee for planning, and you'll do AUM management. Obviously, that's something everybody has a different belief in. What percentage of your revenue right now is fee for planning? And then how much of your revenue expectation going forward, percentage wise, would be fee from planning?
Yeah, so I'd say it's like 97% is fees for planning right now. And for the longest time, I was kind of like oh, I don't like AUM, blah, blah, blah. And I've changed my stance on that. For me now, I give everybody the choice how they want to pay as long as they hit our $12,000 a year minimum fee. As long as you're paying that way, you can do the $1,000 a month. So a lot of people are $1,000 a month and then 0.35%. And they're like, hey, we want to keep things really simple. I'll give them the advice and they can self-manage. And then a lot of times we'll manage their backdoor Roths or things so they don't have to worry about the paperwork and making sure that gets done correctly. And then we have other people who we do like 0.75% starting at like, we'll let them do it at $1 million because we know it'll grow pretty fast. And then it goes to like 0.6 to 2.5, then it goes to 0.5 at 5. And it's something that we're going to focus more on. But because of who we work with a lot of business owners, right? And so we have this business consulting fee and they can pay us through their business. And so they would rather do that than pay through assets, or maybe 98% of their wealth is in there or their retirement plan at work. And so they wouldn't be able to afford us otherwise. Or we have some clients right now who have millions and millions of dollars of equity compensation that they're not selling yet. And so right now they pay a flat fee, and over time they'll probably move over and have us manage it and do it that way. But I want to be known as the best financial planning team. And so I think when fees are put around that, it puts more on us to have to do great financial planning for clients to stay with us. And I will agree, it is harder to keep clients when they feel $1,000 coming out of their pocket than assets under management, which I think just, again, pushes us to have to like continue to deliver really good planning for them.
I also think based on your clientele, I think you said your target, I guess, audience is mid 30s to mid 50s. That clientele does not necessarily have those assets available to where you can get compensated fairly on it. And that makes things a little bit more difficult. So it makes sense why you're doing it. What's going to be interesting is as you evolve. Now, keep in mind, I mean, you're growing significantly fast. You're obviously a strong personality, A-type personality. You're going to go out there, you're going to grow, your business is going to get bigger. Where do you see the business scaling over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years? Eventually, you're going to get to a point where you either have to cut back on the creative end and let other people do that part, or on the money management end where you're going to be needing to be more actively involved there. What are your thoughts on how do you see your business unfolding?
Well, I don't think I will never scale back on the content side of things if we're growing the business, because I don't think anybody can replicate me, right? Like all of the best in the industry do it themselves. And I'm hiring the other parts out because there's a ton of great financial planners. There's a reason why 80% fail, right? It's because they're not good at getting people in the door.
Yep.
And I think like I'm a good planner. I am a great marketer. And I think if you ask across the industry, everybody will name 5 to 10 people. And I would probably be one of those 5 or 10 that every single person names. So like, if somebody named what's the 10 best financial planners, I'm probably not on that list. Right. So I'm like, well, I should be spending time in the list of something that I'm excellent at and hiring people who love this and are excellent at it. I like financial planning, but I don't get excited going through annual reviews and looking through every account and relooking their insurance documents. Like I can hire that out. So I do have a full-time person on staff. He is an EA. He's been doing tax filing and planning for 10 to 100 million revenue businesses. So I brought him on and he's learning the financial planning side. I have an outsourced CFP and I have an assistant already. So that's how it looks now. I think growth, one will definitely be in assets. Like I think right now we probably have almost 10 million that's kind of like in this funnel that might be coming over, which is a really big difference. But at the end of the day, like to me, I don't care because we have a 12 and an $18,000 a year model, and we're getting more and more people in our 18,000 a year model. Like we have a client who has 14 million of equity comp at one company that's having a liquidity event. And for right now, he wants to self-manage, but it's really complex. There's so much going on. We have other people who run like really big C corps, and we're doing a lot of analysis on keeping the C corp versus S corp, all kinds of things like that. And then we also do a financial planning only model where people come in, we do get to know them and their goals meeting and understand their financial meeting, deliver a plan, and then help them implement that plan. So 4 meetings, and we charge 8 or 12,000 there, and we normally bring on one of those a month. And so we can keep scaling that. And that's like my whole team's salary is just in one-time plans, and I could offload that whole part if I wanted to. And then I think we'll grow with new advisors. I have a list of a ton of advisors I love that really want to work with us and who have reached out asking to, that are great advisors, not great marketers. And that's the only people I would hire. Because to me, if I'm going to bring on somebody who's a great marketer, I don't know necessarily the value add other than like, here's your grid and you give us some, but then like adds a lot of compliance and other things. I'd rather say, hey, I can grow you $1 million of client revenue. I could pay you $350,000. You probably never would have got there because of getting the clients is not something you're good at. You never have to worry about that risk or anything. There's a value add because I keep making money by content creation and doing that. And then
and being the rainmaker. I mean, at the end of the day, like that's what your passion is. It seems to be that's what you're interested in. So why not bring on quality people that certified financial planners that could be part of your team? Probably, like you said, there's a lot of great financial planners. They're just not great marketers. So
yeah, and my vision is that I'll bring on like somebody. Right now, I have all my clients and I have a ton of prospects who are retirees that come in that we turn away because that's not who it is. So I could hire somebody for retirees. I could hire somebody for solopreneurs, somebody for equity comp, somebody that's focused on real estate and rentals, somebody who does specifically larger businesses and people that are going to be going through seed rounds and different complexities there, and just continue to source those people with the right clients for them.
do you want it to be a family office in the concept of getting estate planners and tax people in, or do you like outsourcing that?
I like outsourcing it because as soon as you bring in a tax person, but they don't specialize in C corps that are doing this, or they don't specialize in crypto, and you have a client with a bunch of crypto, whatever, like then it doesn't really solve the problem. Where like what I've done is I've run like a hybrid family office where we have the right estate planning attorneys for all of our clients. We connect them, every single one. We connect them to the right tax preparers based on what they're going through. And then we have like 5 tax preparers that we call and we coordinate with. So I think the hybrid family office, the one thing I'm considering is, right now, I partner with kind of a family office on ultra high net worth clients, and potentially just building that internally is probably something that will go down. But I have a pretty good setup. Like I get 20% of the revenue forever if I do none of the work and never meet with them. I get 50% of the revenue forever as long as I'm a part of the process. And so like clients I'd have to pass away because we're not fit for, I can still get paid on. So it's deciding like, is it just easier to do that versus have to build that internally because you need a lot of service staff around that? I don't know.
But you're young and you're new, and I think your passion speaks for itself. I think what's going to end up occurring is you're going to want things done a specific way or a better way, and bringing that in internally, you can make sure that happens. And then conversely, sending those clients to somebody else over time, that could get messy down the road too. So it's
the nice part on that one is I've tested this for a while. The advisor I partner with is like one of my best friends. He's an amazing advisor. He's like 15, maybe he's like 12 years older than me. He's worked on alts and investments for 10 years, an ultra high net worth planner. And in their team, they have an 8-person investment management team, and they have specialists in every single area. So I know the clients get the best work. I get to learn from them and get paid to do it without even really having to do any of the planning. So it is a really good setup. And who knows, maybe I'll try to hire him and bring him on,
or just buy them.
Yeah. I mean, they're a pretty big firm. So, I mean, it'd be tough to buy them, but
hey, you keep growing the way you're growing, you might be able to. So
we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your advice to new advisors that are entering the business, because you were one not too long ago, and what books or what videos or what should they be looking at to educate themselves?
Yeah. So I'm on year 6 right now. So I'm definitely still pretty new in the industry, but I think for me, honestly, I got lucky that I started out at a bad place because it required me like, so I'm an athlete. I grew up playing sports. I always just thought I was going to play professional sports. I went and played in college, got hurt, decided to stop. So I had this like drive to be like, I know if I put in a ton of work, I can become really good at something. And so starting there, I was like, this isn't the right way to do it. I need to go learn it. And so like I sought out a bunch of mentors. I listened to like 2 to 3 long podcasts every single day. I read every blog post I could. And then what I would do is I would chunk away at different things. So I'd be like, for 1 quarter, I'm going to learn about retirement accounts. For 1 quarter, I'm going to learn about estate planning. For 1 quarter, I'm going to learn about tax planning. I'm going to learn equity compensation. And instead of trying to focus on everything, I did it that way. And then I created content around what I was learning. So that way, like if I can teach it and explain it to you in simple terms, I know this. And so I just was like, I'm going to put my head down and learn. And then what I did is when I knew I was going to leave my first job, I wanted to join somewhere I was going to truly learn, but still have like freedom to kind of figure things out. And I had a bunch of offers to go work at bigger firms, make good salaries, but I knew I was going to be a junior planner and then I was going to be a senior planner and I was going to be a junior advisor. And I was like, that's just not really motivating to me. And I was going to follow the way they did things and blah, blah, blah. So I basically sought out Justin Castelli and I begged him for a job. And I was like, pay me $2,000 a month. I don't care. I can break even, but I'm going to learn from you. And that's all that matters. And it'll help me down the long run. And I think that was the best thing that I ever did because he like gave me all the learnings I needed, but like didn't do anything for me in the way that he like, you have to create the content, but here's how I'd think about chunking away and starting here and going to this and like learning some of the soft skills and like blah, blah, blah. And that was like the best thing because from that till now, right? Like in 2024, hopefully I'll end up making like 20 times, 10 to 15 to 20 times that income. And that's 3 years later down the line, all because it helped me focus on the learning.
And you're probably teaching him stuff now that he didn't know, specifically on the marketing side.
And he's known as a great marketer. That was a big reason I went there is he was known as like kind of the content king. He had a blog, he had a podcast. He's done things really well.
Yeah.
We just work with completely different segments of clients. He's an awesome guy and it was like perfect. And then he basically was like, dude, you're ready. Go start your own firm. Like I didn't leave him. I never even wanted to. He was like, go do this, and ended up being the best thing for me because like the type of clients I work with are not in the fee structures that they do and all this kind of stuff. So I'd say 1, like focus on the learning. 2, I think there's legitimately no better way to grow. Most people in their getting started in the industry are going to work with people similar age range to them. Almost all of them are finding their advisors through social. The statistics are like 60 to 80% and the rest are referrals. You're not going to be getting referrals if you don't have clients. So you might as well do it this way. Creating content or doing something on social helps you learn, helps you refine your thoughts. It helps you get better at explaining them. And then eventually when you do it for long enough, it's going to help you grow with clients. So I would say like focus on the education and really try to educate other people. And that can be your way to growing.
And getting a mentor, as you said, extremely help launch.
There's a lot of advisors with office hours. Like I hold an office hours like usually every month, sometimes a little bit more. I know a ton of other great advisors that do. Those are great periods of time and to go learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so I would just say message me. I'll kind of give the link to my office hours. Unfortunately, I don't do any more one-on-ones. I did a thing for 2 years. I did 2 to 4 every week, and that was like my give back. And now we didn't talk about, but like my role at wealth.com and my firm and where we're at and bringing on new clients, annual reviews and my new hires, time is very limited. So instead of doing 1-to-1, I do 1-to-many and people typically love them. So do that. And I think again, for young advisors, like learning is number 1. Podcasts, there's good podcasts like this that are advisors, how they're succeeding. And then there's also podcasts to learn about financial planning. And I think that's the area. Nobody's really going to teach you about real financial planning. Most places you go, they're going to talk about how do I sell something? How do we get your money to roll it over to us? They're not really going to teach you real financial planning. For most people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, they just need help on real financial planning. And so listen to podcasts of other people and other advisors that are teaching about all of the areas of financial planning. So I have a podcast, The Long Game. That's a really good place. ThomasKolbman.com is where my blog is. I have written about almost every financial planning topic at this point. And then my YouTube, you can just look up Thomas Kolbman. I'm building out a ton of good videos there as well.
Excellent, Tom. It's exciting to see your success. Thanks again for joining us. We really enjoyed it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And for those of you that enjoyed today's, please subscribe, like, and please follow Tom. Have a great day.